A single bullet. July 20th, 1951. An assassin opens fire outside a mosque in Jerusalem. In the chaos, one round ricochets wildly off a metal pinned to the chest of a young prince. But the prince's grandfather isn't as lucky. King Abdullah I of Jordan falls dead on the steps. The assassin was no random fanatic. The king was murdered as the inevitable climax of a lifetime spent dealing in secrets, shifting loyalties, and playing both sides against the middle. Today, we're diving into the hidden history of how the borders of the Middle East were actually drawn. To understand why the map of this region remains so volatile today, we have to unravel the deeply contradictory life of the man who helped carve it up. Take a look at this map of the Middle East right after the First World War. As the Ottoman Empire collapses, those centuries-old borders disappear. What remains is a massive, undefined territory stretching across the desert. In that vacuum, two entirely different versions of Abdullah emerged. To his supporters, he is the founding father of Arab independence, a monarch who built a modern nation from nothing. To his neighbors, he is a traitor who sold out the Arab cause for his own ambition. Navigating between those two extremes, appeasing colonial empires while maintaining local legitimacy, makes Abdullah the ultimate test case for political survival in the 20th century. Abdullah first stepped onto the world stage during the Great Arab Revolt of 1916. He led relentless guerrilla raids across this vast landscape, fighting to drive out the Ottomans and establish total Arab sovereignty. But that rebellion was heavily subsidized. Behind the scenes, the guerrilla campaign was a calculated geopolitical maneuver, bankrolled and armed by the British military. By 1921, European powers were partitioning the region. During a famous tea party in Cairo, Winston Churchill convinced Abdullah to halt his forces from attacking French troops in Syria. The trade-off? The British would give Abdullah his own territory to rule. That arrangement birthed the Emirate of Transjordan, and to ensure its survival, Abdullah relied on British military commanders to build and lead his armed forces. Trading the ideal of a unified Arab rebellion for practical British colonial backing set the precedent for the rest of his life. Abdullah chose compromise over martyrdom. That pragmatic streak extended directly to how he governed. Abdullah possessed unassailable religious credentials. He was a 38th generation direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. With that lineage, he could have easily tried to build a strict theocracy. Instead, he chose to engineer what he called a civil state, leaning heavily toward modern governance. If we map out this civil state, it looks like this structural flowchart. The legal system isolates Islamic Sharia courts entirely to matters of personal status, like marriage and inheritance. Meanwhile, secular parliamentary law governs the wider state apparatus, including the economy and foreign policy. By legally isolating the religious courts, this model of consensual secularism effectively prevented radical religious forces from taking control of the government infrastructure. His bloodline bought him the deep religious legitimacy he needed. It provided the exact cover required to impose a secular-leaning government without sparking a holy war among his own people. But the most dangerous balancing act of his life was yet to come. In the build-up to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Abdullah had the Arab League appoint him as supreme commander of the combined Arab forces. His military, the Arab Legion, engaged in fierce, highly visible combat operations in and around Jerusalem. Yet, while publicly directing the Arab war effort, Abdullah was simultaneously engaged in highly classified backdoor meetings with Jewish leaders. He sat down with future Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir in a series of clandestine talks. Their mutual goal was to bypass the United Nations and privately carve up the disputed territories between themselves. Abdullah's grand strategy was to use the chaos of the war, along with quiet British support, to seize the West Bank and East Jerusalem, annexing them directly into his own kingdom. By absorbing that territory, he deliberately sabotaged the creation of an independent Palestinian state, effectively outmaneuvering the political rivals he despised in neighboring Arab countries. His secret diplomacy successfully expanded Jordan's physical borders and secured Jerusalem. But the moment the ink dried, the trust between Abdullah and the rest of the Arab world was permanently shattered. Which brings us back to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1951. The assassin who pulled the trigger was a Palestinian tailor's apprentice, acting for nationalist groups. Once Abdullah's secret negotiations with Israel and his unilateral annexation of the West Bank became public knowledge, retaliation was all but guaranteed. The brutal realpolitik maneuvers that successfully expanded his borders and stabilized his young kingdom were the exact same actions that guaranteed his murder. Yet, his project survived him. That young grandson whose medal deflected a bullet outside the mosque was Prince Hussein. He would go on to inherit the throne, using his grandfather's exact civil state framework to weather decades of future crises. Abdullah I physically redrew the borders of the Middle East. He proved that in a region defined by collapsing empires and fractured loyalties, strict pragmatism often outlasts ideological purity. If you want to uncover more of the hidden histories that shaped our modern world, hit the subscribe button, share this video, and we'll see you in the next one.